This week on the terrific Every Other Thursday video, Christopher is going to tell us all about reinventing the wheel. So stick around and we'll be right back. So hello, everybody. My name is George Williams. I am the Next Search Catalog Coordinator at Northeast Kansas Library System in Lawrence, Kansas.
I'm Christopher Brannon, IT Coordinator for the Coeur d'Alene Public Library and support for Inland Share, our new consortium.
So that's weird to hear you say the name of a different consortium. So something happened. There's some kind of mix-up, and all of a sudden you're in a new consortium. So you're having to pull data from your old koha and move data into a new koha, and it sounds like you're encountering some circumstances that maybe other people should be aware of if they're ever in a kind of situation similar.
Yeah, this is definitely fringe circumstances, to say the least. I mean, not everybody's going to go through situations like this. I mean, for the most part, people are dealing with the complexities of joining systems and sharing materials and patrons and policies and all sorts of things that happen when you combine your things and share with each other. Our situation, unfortunately, our original consortium is dividing up into three smaller groups, and so we're setting ourselves up. We've got a large chunk of the libraries from that original consortium joining Inland Share, and I've learned a few things, or I'm learning new things as we go. So I thought I'd share what we've run into at this point, because I know that at least some of the stuff might be worth developers considering or thinking about and moving forward. Some of it could just be me bumbling through some things. I don't know, but definitely some things that I thought were worthy of sharing to the community. So
And I'm willing to bet one of the reasons, you've described to me a couple of the issues you're having, and I'm willing to bet that one of the reasons that you're having these issues is because developers probably and support companies probably aren't thinking of a lot of situations where there's a koha to koha migration, because you're taking data from one koha and putting it into a different koha, and you're trying to preserve some of the things you had in the old koha and add some things that to the new koha. And that's how often do people do that, where you have a migration from one system to the same system, just different. I mean, it's weird.
right,
Yeah.
we're in a place where we're trying to determine, okay, what are the things that we think that need to happen in order for this to work. And then we're dealing with our support vendor, who's which is in our case Bywater. They've actually said that they've gone through something like this before, so they do have some experience. But aligning those expectations from what they expect or how they've gone through it before and what we think should happen are challenging. We're still trying to align those goals. Our approach to this separation is, we have some things and patrons that are kind of intertwined. We have items from one group that are still in the hands of patrons from another group.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to deal with that? And our thought is, well, we make 3 copies of the same system, and once we cut over, we deactivate holds for the branches that aren't in our system, and um, we allow those items to come back. We still have a connection as to we know who has what in there.
Right.
Those It's just those outside branches aren't doing anything, and their things are not active anymore for anybody to ask for. But we do know who owes what and where things need to go, so that's been our approach in this division. So we're not so much reinventing the structure of Koha. We're just kind of deactivating some elements within each copy of it, so that we can keep moving forward. I'm not changing any kind of structure in the transition. We have some ideas for after we transition that we'll implement, but we want to make the transition as smooth as possible. So we're trying not to touch too much with the data, so
Okay.
or the structure. So, anyways, so I have three things that I'm going to talk about real quick. We'll see how quick it is. The first thing that came on my radar in this transition is okay, we've spun up a test server and we built the structure, or we built the branding on it the way that we wanted, and we deactivated elements that we think that need to be deactivated or set when the patron and item information is refreshed the night before we go live.
Right.
So we've done that. One of the things that I decided prior to us splitting apart was implementing two-factor authentication.
Okay.
So we activated that in the test server. Well, come to find out, they copied that test server over to what's going to end up being our production server. So it's sharing that same structure, but that two-factor authentication doesn't translate. So basically, it's enabled on our production server and on my account, but when I go to input the two-factor authentication, it doesn't line up with what's on my phone for the code that I put in there. So it doesn't accept it. So some things that I'm learning about this. Bywater was able to deactivate the two-factor authentication, but when I go in there to edit my account and turn that off of my specific account, it's not there because the whole thing is disabled. So if I go in there and enable that, it locks me back out before I can do anything. And of course, no other accounts can touch that setting on my account, which
is a security measure.
It is, but it kind of causes a problem because we copied a system over to a new system, and that doesn't carry over with that. So that introduced an interesting issue. So I had activated that to go and remove it from my account, and then locked myself out again. Had to have Bywater deactivate two-factor again. So this time around, I thought, okay, I'm just going to create a new admin account and not touch that one anymore. So ended up doing that. And my recommendation is, if you're going to have a system copied and you're using two-factor, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody from using two-factor, but if you're using two-factor on a system that you're going to have copied over to a production or test server, don't just turn off two-factor, but go into the accounts that have two-factor set and disable that in each of those accounts, because disabling the whole feature, unfortunately, does not remove
it still leaves those authentication tokens in the fields in the account. So you really need somebody to go in there and clear those out of the database.
Yeah. And so, what this has left me thinking, you either have to prepare for that and get those all deactivated before that copy, or you know, hopefully down the line, developers can figure out a way to deal with this a little better. Either if the feature is turned off, it removes any two-factor settings from all accounts, so that when you turn it back on, it starts up fresh for
Right.
that system. Um, but of course, you would have to reset it in your original account as well, unless when the copy is made and it's deactivated on the copy. Um, if you're doing that on your existing system that's going to be copied, you're going to have to deactivate it, copy it over, and then activate it on both and reset it for all accounts. So it's a little complicated there, and I get why it's a little complicated. You don't want people being able to turn off other people's authentication willy-nilly. Um, so, you know, hopefully they can come up with a good workflow for that kind of a situation.
Right.
So, it's something for vendors to keep in mind. It's something for developers to keep in mind. Maybe they can come up with um, with something um, to work around that. But
Okay.
for now, that's what I ran into on that. Um, another thing that I ran into is in prep for splitting off, we have created basically islands of holds and uh, libraries items in three separate groups in our system. So basically, where everybody could place a hold on anybody's thing before, now we have these item
You're
groups.
isolated into whole groups.
Yeah, hold groups that we created,
Yeah.
which I love. So now we have these three groups. So group one can't place holds on anything from group 2 or 3, and likewise, which is really nice. On our test server, that went really well. Everything seemed to indicate that was going to work. In fact, we were thinking, what happens if something is in transit um, when I throw that switch? And I tested it, and oh, sure enough, it fulfilled the hold after I um, threw the switch on in the rules as to how to uh, do holds. But when we went to production, you know, I think that held true. But what we were finding was we still have things in the hold queue from other libraries that we no longer should be fulfilling. And Bywater looked at it and said, "Oh, well, there's some stale data." I threw the switch after the initial cron job for that morning ran, and so they had to run a cron job for the queue. And they said something about putting in a force. They set a switch to force something to happen in there.
Right.
I don't know the complexities of those cron jobs or the queues, but basically they did that. And yes, sure enough, that fixed the thing where, we didn't have those things in the queue for other library groups anymore, which was great. But one of the things that we found was happening was that if a patron from group 1 had a hold on something and only group 2 or 3 had it, and their group did not, their hold went away completely. I was I had the assumption that if their hold request couldn't be filled by their group, that it would just kind of sit there dormant. And that, I guess that was kind of a naive
So it's
assumption.
not even in the reserves table anymore, is what you're saying.
It's not. I don't know if it's in I don't know if it got removed from the reserves table, but it got removed from their accounts. Um, so things that they've had on their wish list that they're waiting for who knows how long, suddenly are gone, and it's like,
Uh-huh.
so we'll have to take a look at those tables and see if those got wiped out completely. I want to, am, I want to be hopeful and say that they're still there and they're just can't, the showing is canceled, but I don't know.
Uh,
Um, so that is something to keep in mind if you're going to implement item hold groups in any way, regardless if it's you're splitting up or you're just creating a little island within your group. Um, keep that in mind. Um, the last thing that I ran into, or that I'm currently dealing with, we have had the pleasure of using Twilio for a while now, at least a couple years. I did a presentation back,
Ian Lawrence at the KohaCon in Lawrence.
not in Lawrence.
Yeah, it was in
It was
Lawrence.
New
I was there.
Hampshire. It was in New Hampshire that I did the presentation.
All right. I think you're wrong, but okay.
Check
I'm
the
not gonna.
schedule. I remember standing up there and showing off everything that I did, but maybe I don't know. I might have, well, no. Okay. I think I talked
Yeah,
about it at both. I think I talked about it a little bit in Lawrence, but I went into some more details. I don't know.
I'm checking. Don't worry.
My
Keep
my
talking.
my brain is fried from this whole ordeal. But anyways, Twilio, I love it, but it was a process to get started up. Uh, there are some um, there are some regulations that you have to go through and jump through some hoops in order to uh, authenticate yourself and prove you are who you are and that what you're doing is all in the up and up. Um, some of this stuff came about as we were setting up. And so even Bywater didn't have a lot of information on it at the time. But one of the things that I'm finding now is that Bywater is providing more detailed steps in the process um, to setting that up. But we have, we're choosing to not repurpose the existing Twilio account. We're trying to make a clean break, and so we wanted to have a brand new number, and it's only inland shares. It's not going to
Right. That
be
makes sense to me.
identified in any way with the original consortium. So um, setting it up, I forgot, you set something up and you get it working just perfectly and you forget about it because you don't have to do it again, which is
Right.
really nice. But it's been a while. It's been a long while, 2 to 3 years for me. And it's like, oh man, I knew it was going to be a process, but I forget how complex bouncing around in Twilio's console can be, knowing where to go and what to do next in there. While Bywater's information is good, it's very basic. They tell you what they need from it, but going through the steps within Twilio um, can be a hurdle. You know, I am, I've established a new number and I have established um, one of the things that I was hoping I could do is I have this huge um, tree uh, set up for voice calls. If somebody happens to call the phone number uh, that's associated with it, they're not just going to be hit with a dead end, but they'll be given some information and can connect to one of the libraries, which is really nice. But it's a very intricate workflow. And I was kind of worried I'd have to recreate all that. But what was really nice was I was able to export that workflow and then import it. It exported it as JSON, and I was able to import it into the new system, and then I can go in there and tweak it specifically for the new consortium rather than starting from scratch on that part. So that was really helpful. But um, yeah, there are some hoops that you have to jump through in just getting Twilio set up and established, and you have to set up your brands, and you have to set up what's called a campaign, let them know how you intend to use messaging within there.
Right.
It's kind of an interesting process. So I'm part of the way through it, but it is still ongoing. Still learning to figure out what I still need to do, and then you know you have to coordinate with I have to coordinate with Bywater in this case because we've copied a system over and they've isolated the system so that this system, which is not ready yet, is not sending out notifications, which is great. I don't want notifications coming from that system until after we go live. But
Right.
how do you test these things when you're setting things up on a system that isn't sending out notifications yet? So that's
Right.
going to be something that Bywater's going to have to hold my hand on, and we're going to have to figure out as we go. So that's where we are at the moment. That's what we've run into. We're doing a lot of patron cleanup prior to the
Right.
fact, but one of the things that we've determined with Bywater is we wanted to be able to set up the structure on the new instances of our databases, get those set up ahead of time so we're not scrambling to do things the moment the data cuts over. And so they're able what we were able to determine with Bywater is that we could copy and set up the system the way that we need to and brand it and do all the things that we need to with the internal plumbing without changing. We're not changing item types and we're not changing patron categories and things like that. We're changing basically what rules we need to change and how items are being treated. But we're setting it up so that a couple days before they can copy the patron and item information over into that structure, and we'll be ready to go. I think the only things that they said that we were limited on carrying over were logs, and they were limited to they said that we could only get up to about 5 years of our statistics carried over.
Yeah.
So,
I don't even keep the statistics that long. So,
yeah, I know that we've set up some guidelines with Bywater as to how long we were holding on to some data, but I can't remember what we were on the statistics. It's been so long since we set that stuff up with them. But it's not terrible. I mean, hopefully we're gonna make this move, and it'll be minimal impact on patrons and minimal impact on staff.
well, I would like to say I look forward to your presentation on how to dissolve and start a new consortium at the 2026 conference. Because by then you'll be through the other side of this wormhole and everything will be working normally and everything will be awesome. Right now, you're just on the wrong side of it.
Dude, I want to give presentations that I think are going to, benefit more people than just a handful of people that may or may not do something like this. I hope nobody ever has to do something like this, but maybe I will. We'll see.
It's you learn things from bad experiences just as much as you learn from good experiences. So I think there's probably you're not realizing it, but there are probably things in here you're learning that might be useful to other people. So,
well, definitely, while I don't think there are going to be a lot of people out there clamoring to,
clamoring to dissolve
break up their consortiums, I do think that some of these issues are worth noting. And when going back to Twilio real quick, when you set up your Twilio, document all of your steps so you don't have to guess along the way. If you have to rebuild a system, build it for somebody else, or do something like what we're doing. So document what you're doing. I know that Twilio will change along the way from when you first set it up. It looks a little different from when I first set it up, but for the most part, it is close to what I remember. So unfortunately, it wasn't like 10 years ago. It was just a few years ago. But um, the stuff with two-factor, the stuff with the holds groups. I mean, you will run into those kinds of things, whether you're copying a system over just to create a test server, or maybe you want to duplicate your work so that somebody doesn't have to start from scratch, or whatever. Hopefully these are helpful to somebody somewhere for so you don't have to run into these problems.
Well, I think the phrase document everything can apply to a lot of the work that we do, because I know that, a few episodes ago, I introduced Nikki, our new support specialist at Next Search Catalog. And I'm finding there's a lot of things where when I show Nikki how to do this, it's like, well, I know how to do it and nobody else does because I've never documented it, because I know how to do it. But documenting things is good. And we're using Aspen Discovery. So like we are an early adopter for Koha 2505. And so we will be upgraded by the next time you and I record a video. We will be upgraded probably. Definitely by the next time the video is released. We're upgrading in a week from yesterday to be an early adopter for 2505. And I'm finding that we're creating all of our documentation and putting it on Aspen Discovery. It's a great way to build it all as a website so that our staff can go there and read the documentation. But that's what we're going to try and do with a lot of stuff, is move it to the Aspen web builder and have our stuff easy. It makes it really easy for people to find. You don't have to go to a new site to look for stuff. It's just there in Aspen. So
nice.
Well,
right.
I wish you good luck. I'm wondering what you did earlier in your life to make, to deserve this, to deserve all this extra work. But I'm glad you're finding it out instead of me.
You know what I did in life to deserve this is I did my job well on 2 other migrations, and so it's like let's see what he can do with this. So
it's the curse
here we
of
go.
competence.
Here we go. I'm glad I've had the experience of going through the migrations that I did, because I think if I had to do this cold and not having that experience, I think I would probably be a puddle on the floor right now.
Yeah.
So it's not enjoyable, but I will get through this, and my motto in life right now is, it is what it is.
Right.
All we can do is the best we can through the situation, and if we miss something, we'll figure out how to get through it on the other end. So
my motto is remember, it's Red Green's motto from the Red Green Show. It's, remember, this is only temporary unless it works.
I like it.
All right. It's good to see everybody. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right.